I said earlier, auto layout is pretty huge, right? It enables us to be flexible and adaptive with our layouts, right? Right now, Apple has many devices, many sizes of devices, right? So there's many classes of devices. Back in iOS 8 or 11 or 9, one of those OSs, Apple came out with a new paradigm or a new class called UI Trait Collection. UI Trait Collection also came with what's known as size classes. Size classes, if we go to the document I shared out, size classes here, they're traits, right? They let us know what environment the phone is in, right? And Apple has 4 different types of categories or environments your phone or iPad could be in, right? Here we have the combinations of sizes. Can everybody see in the back? Adam, can you see in the back?
Well, yeah, we can make it bigger.
Okay, so Apple in their WWDC video, right, Worldwide Developer Conference, where Apple always comes out with new software. Back when size classes got released, right, one of the slides were we have about 300 combination of devices. That's a lot of devices for a developer to be able to code towards, right, or to figure out what device it is. So Apple came out with size classes. Here we see 4 combinations, not 300, right? That would be a nightmare, right? So we have 4 different choices to use. Either the device we currently have or see is in regular width or regular height, right? That's one of the combinations, right? A next combination, I'll send out a Slack of different diagrams to show us what the size classes are. We could have compact width and compact height, right? We could have regular width and compact height. And lastly, we could have compact width and regular height. Let's take a look at what the diagrams look like at the bottom here. So here we have device size classes, right? In the iPad here, we could have regular width and regular height, right? On the next iPhone here, the width could be compact, because compact meaning you cannot fit a lot of elements on it. Everybody with me? If it's in compact, that means you cannot fit a lot of elements on it. It's very space crunched, okay? Or you could have a regular height. You could feel free to put as many elements as you want there. So either it's compact, meaning it's constrained, or it's regular, meaning you could go ahead and add whichever elements you want. You're not space constrained. In this particular iPad here, we have regular, right? Regular width, regular height. I could put in any elements I want here, right? With this particular iPhone in landscape mode, right? Here, the height, I'm height constrained. So I'm compact. My height, I could only fit in so many elements here. So this would be a compact regular size class. Everybody with me? Okay, so those are some of the size classes. And Apple documents all the size classes here for every iPad or iPhone it is. But do not worry about memorizing the size classes, because we'll see later in Xcode, any device that you're working with, when you say view as iPhone, it shows you the size class. So we don't have to memorize that particular element there. Everybody with me? Okay, let's get one other document here. I'll slack over to you guys. And please document those for your references. So this particular web page actually goes ahead and it shows us the different size classes. Like here you see the iPad in full screen. Again, regular height, regular width. I could put in any elements here that I want. I'm not size constrained. If I'm size constrained, that means I'm in compact size class. Here, again, the iPad in landscape, it's regular. The iPhone here, regular height. I could put in any elements I want. I'm not size constrained here. But the width, I'm constrained, so it's compact. I can't fit abundantly the elements I want across the width of the device. I'm size constrained, so I'm in compact width, right? So I'll slide that over as well, and we'll take a look at a demo to use size classes and see what that looks like. Okay, so we have two documents to bookmark. Let's go to Xcode and do a demo. We'll drag in a new view controller. This one is 678. So we'll drag in an if view controller. So go ahead and search for view controller. We'll drag in a view controller here. I'll click on my view controller. I'll click once on the view controller name here. I'll change it to Autolayout 8, right? I'll copy that string. Press enter. And I'll go back to the identity inspector. So I'll go to the identity inspector and I'll put in the storyboard ID that I paste in. So it's auto layout 8, and I'll press enter. Cool. So we'll drag in two UI elements. We'll drag in a UI image view, and we'll drag in a UI text view. And we'll make sure that they're half and half here as far as the height is concerned. So let's go ahead, let's go to the library. Let's search for a UI image view. I'll get a UI image view here. I'll drag the bottom such that it touches the trailing edge here. So this is a UI image view. I will pin it using the add new constraints. I'll pin it to the top at 0. I'll pin it to the lead-in at 0. And I'll pin it trailing at 0. So I have 3 constraints, right? Top.
I remember because it's on my stuck.
Is it? Your Xcode is stuck?
It's just giving me
The beach ball? Do me a favor, force quit. You know how to force quit? Okay, so we pin to the top at 0, we pin lead-in 0, and we pin trailing 0. Great. Was anybody able to update to Xcode 11.2 over the weekend? Couple people? Okay, cool. I think some people are still on 11.1, so we'll go ahead and control drag here to the safe area, right? It won't be exactly half as I intended it to be, but do me a favor, everybody go ahead and control drag to the view. Control drag from the image view over to the view. So we control dragging from the image view to the view. Let me know if you see equal heights. No, okay. So again, with Xcode 11.2, you have equal heights here because I really want to be half, not the safe area. Because if I say the safe area, then I lose that safe area height. Does that make sense? Okay.
You can go in and like go into the constraint under safe area and change it to suit you.
Okay. A bit more there, but we'll just do safe area for now. Cool, but thank you so much for that. Because we have to onboard people what to do there. All right, so let's go ahead and control drag from the image view over to the safe area. Everybody? Control drag from the image view to the safe area. Do we all see equal heights? All right, so click on equal heights here. And let's go to the size inspector. Oh, I did not pin. 1 second. Go ahead and change it to 0.5. I need to add my 3 constraints, which I haven't done. Okay, so now we're going to edit. We're going to edit the height percentage. So I'll click on where it says height to safe area. I'll edit. Do we all see the multiplier here? I'll change it to 0.5. Right, I'll change it to 0.5. I'll press enter. And now I have my image view. The image I slacked out, did we all download it? Okay, let's add it to our assets. So go to your assets folder, click on the add button down here. Click on the add button. And go ahead and import the image that we slacked out. Cool, potluck is coming. Great. So I have my image. I go back to storyboard. I'll update my image view for that image. I'll go to the attributes inspector. I'll select the image we just imported. And now I have an image. Next, okay. So now we will go to the object library. Go to the object library and search for a UI text view. So UI text view, drag in a UI text view. I'll drag the trailing to the trailing of the super view. I'll drag the top right about where the image view is here. And I'll go ahead and add new constraints. Let me zoom in here. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay, so I'm adding constraints for the text view. I'm going to add new constraints. I'm selecting bottom 0, so I'm pinning to the bottom. I'm pinning to the leading, I'm pinning to the trailing, and I'm adding 3 constraints. Next, I'll control drag from the text view to the image view. So control drag from the text view to the image view. And we're selecting vertical spacing. Do we see vertical spacing? Do we see vertical spacing? So I'll select vertical spacing. Okay? At this point, we shouldn't have any more errors or warnings, correct? Vertical spacing from the image, from the text view to the image view. Cool? And let's go edit the vertical spacing to be 0. So go to your size inspector. Go to your size inspector and edit your vertical spacing here to 0. So make sure it says 0 here for the constant. Make sure the constant says 0 and press enter. Cool. Yes, sir.
I have lost focus and I have you go back to what you did with the text view fields.
So the text view, the constraints for the text view, it's 0 to the trailing. So you pin, use the pins, right? 0 to trailing, 0 to leading, 0 to bottom. And then when you're done, you control drag from the text view up to the image view, and you select vertical spacing.
You have 0 from the top as well.
0, yes. Yes, sir.
Where'd you get that block of text from?
Oh, that comes with your text view. Did you drag in a label or a text view?
Oh, I didn't drag it. Where'd you get that?
So it's a text view. We used text view before?
Text view.
Yeah, text view. So text view from the object library. Did you get a text view, Yulia? Okay. How are we doing? We all on board here?
Wait,
Yes.
you said there's constraints on the
For the text view, we control drag from the text view
yeah.
up to the image view, and we set it to be vertical spacing.
Yeah, but you said the constraints were 0, 0, 0.
We started off with 3 constraints for the text view. It was leading 0, trailing 0, bottom 0.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, you're good, you're good. They each have 4 constraints now. All right, great. So we have our iPhone here. It's great, it looks good. What if we go ahead and change the orientation to landscape? Right? So we're talking about size classes here. And now our iPhone is in landscape, and our image looks somewhat constricted, right? The image could use more space. Do we agree? Images are great, right? Images are great. We want the image to take more space. So here we'll use size classes to achieve that. If we zoom in, if I zoom in, here, do you see where my thing says W, small w, and it says uppercase R? So this here is the width is regular, right? That's what it says. Remember size classes we said earlier? So here the size class for that particular orientation, the width is regular, right? Regular meaning I'm not size constrained. And the height is compact. My height is constricted. I'm restricted with what I could add with the height of that particular device there in that orientation. Do we all capture what size classes is now? Right? So we have 4 combinations if we go back to the Apple documentation here. So we have 4 of those combinations. We have 4 of those combinations here. With iPad, iPhone, we're in one of those combinations, not 300 combinations. Can you imagine a world with 300 combinations? So Apple made it really easy. They have 4 size classes, right? So you have regular, which is iPad here. You have compact iPhone, regular compact iPhone, and you have compact regular iPhone, right? And if we go back, we're in regular compact, regular width, compact height. Yes?
The other way around.
You the other way around? What iPhone do you have? I have the iPhone Pro Max. Are you in landscape or portrait?
My text isn't showing.
Your constraints might be off. All right, so here let me slack one other thing, because what we're really talking about is the class called UI Trait Collection. UI Trait Collection here. Let me slack this out. Again, please bookmark all this on the auto layout. Those could be interview questions. Those will come back. All right, so UI Trait Collection, that's what we'll be using along with size classes. So UI Trait Collection is that class, that UI class that enables us to change our environment and to also update our environment based on that change, right? So UI Trait Collection is that class. What UI Trait Collection gives us, let's go back to Xcode and see it in demo. UI Trait Collection gives us this button here, which is called Very4 Traits. Do we see Very4 Traits? Very4 Traits basically says, I'm about to make a change based on my environment. So the Very4 Traits button here enables us to change the constraints based on the environment, right? So based on the environment, I could change my constraints, which is what we want to do. We want to make our image bigger when the user goes into landscape. And the 2 constraints will be independent of each other when we use Very4 Traits. If you don't use Very4 Traits, the constraints will be the same as portrait and landscape. Questions about that? So to be able to distinguish between portrait and landscape, we have to use Very4 Traits here. Very4 Traits will give us that flexibility to update our constraint based on orientation. Julia? Yes? Yeah, so right now we're editing our landscape mode. We haven't clicked on Very4 Traits. But when we click on Very4 Traits, it enables Xcode and the environment and UI Trait Collection to know that we have a particular constraint set for landscape. So the system itself does that for us. All what we have to do is tell it what we want in orientation, in landscape. We set our constraints, and when the user turns the device, it updates the constraint based on the Very4 Traits we give it. Very powerful, right? Yes, sir. Upside down, we do not have the setting for that. You could actually check that if you want in Xcode. It's unchecked by default, meaning, right, we don't really use our phone upside down unless you're skydiving, maybe. Something like that, right? I mean, you could check it on, but it's off by default. Cool? Those we're concerned about is landscape right, landscape left, and portrait. Portrait up, not portrait down. Does that make sense? Portrait down would be the home button facing north. All right, cool. So let's keep going. So make sure that you're in landscape, right? Make sure your orientation is landscape. Everybody? When we're ready to change the size class or edit our Very4 Traits, we click Very4 Traits. So click on Very4 Traits. What we're interested in is the height, right? What we're interested in modifying is the height. Right now, we're looking at the height of the device. We want to base on the height of the device landscape. We want to change our constraints. So click on where it says height here in the box. Do we all see access? Do we all have access to Very4 Traits? Okay, so click on height. Then we'll get this light bluish overlay, right? That means now we're in edit mode for Very4 Traits. Cool? Let me zoom back here. All right, great. So let us go ahead and edit our constraints. So select your image view. Select your image view. Make sure you select your image view. And reset constraints. So click on the resolve auto layout issues. Do we all see the auto layout issues button? Click on it. Do we see where it says clear constraints for selected view? Do we see selected view clear constraints? So do we all see where the add new constraints button is? Let me zoom in here. Do we all see that add new constraints button? To the right of it, do we see resolve constraints? That triangle. Do you see it? And both of them. All right, so yeah. So click on resolve auto layout issues and click clear constraints for the image view and do the same thing for the text view, okay? So click on your text view, click on your text view, click on your text view at the bottom, go to resolve constraints and click on clear constraints. Yes? And make sure that you're still in Very4 Traits edit mode, yes? All right, cool. So now we have no constraints. As I double checked here, my size inspector, I do not have any constraints. So let's go ahead and actually drag our trailing edge of the image view. Drag your trailing edge of the image view. Drag your leading edge of your text view. Drag down your image view to the super view's bottom. Drag your trailing such that it's about half the device. And we want to make sure that our safe area, we're not going beyond the safe area. Actually, we can, but for now, let's just go right at the safe area here. All right, let's set the constraints for the image view first. So for the image view, make sure your image view is selected. Make sure your image view is selected. Click on the Add New Constraints button. Okay? Click on the Add New Constraints button. Yes? For the top, make sure it says 0 here. For the top, 0. For the lead-in, 0. For the bottom, 0. Yes? And add those 3 constraints. And let's do one more. We'll do the height. Image view, image view, image view. Okay, let's do the width of it, sorry. So control drag from the image, over to the safe area. Control drag from the image over to the safe area and select equal width, right? Equal width. And let's go ahead and edit equal width. So equal width will be, let's zoom in here. Equal width will be 0.5. My equal width is 0.5. Okay, cool. Next up, let's do the text view. So the text view, the top of it, I will drag it to the top of my device. I will drag the lead-in right at the safe area. And that's it for now. So let's set the constraints for the text view. Let's go to add new constraints for the text view. So my text view, the top will be 0. Trailing will be 0. Bottom will be 0. I add 3 constraints. control drag from the text view, over to the image view. Control drag. 0 top, 0 bottom, 0 trailing for the text view. So control drag from the text view over to the image view. Control drag from the text view over to the image view. And here we're selecting horizontal spacing. Okay? Horizontal spacing. And we edit our horizontal spacing. So we go back to the size inspector, For my horizontal spacing, I will edit to 0. I'll press enter. Great. Which one? The last one? Which one? Oh, so I control drag from your text view to your image view. And horizontal spacing should come up as an option. Click on it. When you click on it, and then go to size inspector. Go to the size inspector is the ruler. Horizontal, what do you have? You should have 4 constraints for the text view, correct? Which ones do you have? For text view, what do you have? Let's see. 1 second. Let's go back here. Leading, we did horizontal trailing, but leading is fine. What's your leading value? Is it 0? So change it to 0. Cool? Did it snap to? All right, excellent. Okay, at this point, we shouldn't have any warnings or any errors, right? So now we could click on, before we continue, when we're ready to commit changes, do we all see done variant? Do we all see done variant? Jahid? Majed? Cassandra, do we see done variant? So click on done variant here. Right? So our light blue edit has gone. Right? Yes? So now let's rotate the phone. So go back to portrait. Click on portrait. So in portrait, it fills up the entire top of the device with the image, correct? When we go back to landscape, we have our image looking way better than it was before, right? So here we've used size classes along with UI trait collection to vary the traits. So if we actually run the device, go ahead and run your simulator. Actually, before you run your simulator, you need to do one more thing. So click on your, right where it says Autolayout 8. Do we see that here? Click on it. Go to the attribute inspector. Do we see initial view controller? Do we see is initial view controller? Click on that, we're gonna get the arrow. So without that, we would not be able to see our phone, our screen as that first screen. So far, so good? So make sure you click on is initial view controller. Go ahead and run your app on the simulator. So run your app on the simulator. So here I have my app running. Let me zoom in a little bit here. What is happening to you? Okay, so here I have my app running. If I use command and I turn my device, right? This is a better presentation, right? It's a better presentation because no longer is my image stuck to the top and that small image, right? Autolayout did as much as it could for us, right? Autolayout went as far as it could have gone. It gave us an image, it laid out the image based on half of the device. But in landscape, that's not ideal. So you as the developer or the designer could choose to vary your traits, right? When the user is in landscape, I want a different layout. When the user is in portrait, I want a different layout. There's much more you could do with size classes. You could show labels, you could hide labels, you could add more content. We could actually add more content here in landscape as opposed to when it's in portrait. Cool? But I felt it right to show us what size classes are, right? So we could say, now we know what size classes are, what capabilities it gives us. We won't be in total shock, like what size classes. So this is size classes here, and it's pretty cool, right? So with that, any questions before we move on? Command left or right. Hold down Command. Cool. Great. Yes, sir.
I have a weird error. It says that available device cannot be used on this target.
Use a simulator. Make sure you have a simulator selected. Close Xcode, reopen it, and make sure your simulators come up. Any other questions based on size classes? Yes, sir.
Does this extend to different devices as opposed to different?
Size classes is one place you could go. It has to be, for size classes, it has to be the same size class. If you want to go further, there's what's known as the device idiom.
Okay.
So you can actually write code and figure out if it's an iPhone 4 versus an iPhone 5S.
Gotcha.
You have that.
So it's really about the 4 different.
The 4 different, exactly, environments, right? Which gives us a lot already. But if you want to go deeper, there's APIs for that.
So the largest iPad in like RC like this would display the same.
Regular.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. With iPad, we don't have much work to do because the image itself takes more space already. Yes?
When you do constraints, how do you know to put 0, 0, and where to put it and when to put it?
Okay, that's a valid question. So with the top image, we wanted to put 0 because we wanted to be no space between the top image and the top of the device. The left edge or the leading edge, same thing. We want it to be 0 because we don't want no padding between it. If you want to have padding, you could add 10 or 8, whatever it is. Then your image is going to be 8 points away from the edge. Cool? Cool. So we'll stop here. Yes, one other question?
Yeah, all the time confusing when you need to make half of the screen.
For here, just for illustration purposes, we did it that way. Most likely, you'll have your designer telling you where pixel perfect they want that element to be.
No, I mean like how to make this half because like for image view, we did control drag to save.
For safe area, in that case, we did not get an exact half.
We didn't.
No, because the safe area has, exactly. If you want to get it, the image, the view, exactly.
But second time we did view this.
Horizontal spacing,
Why we did this?
because horizontal spacing, your closest neighbor. I want to be laid out to my closest neighbor
Okay.
at 0. So I want to snap to my neighbor.
But is like will be equal to this image view?
Yes, the image view, 0. Like in that case, in this particular orientation here, right? In that particular orientation, right? That guys, 1 second, please. In that particular orientation, so Yulia is asking, how do you know the horizontal spacing should be 0? With the text view, you want it to snap at the trailing of the image view, so horizontal spacing should be 0.
Yeah, I understand like why you do horizontal spacing to 0. I just like feel like we're using different ways to make.
There's different ways, and we should know all the ways. Don't be stuck on one way. There's different ways to use Autolayout. So that's why exactly today I showed you guys size classes, because it's very powerful. And most apps sometimes stick in portrait, but what if your designer tells you they want a different layout in landscape? We could do that. Cool? All right, great.